In the Season 3 premiere of House of the Dragon, an entire character was deleted. Not killed off, deleted. Erased from existence as if she never mattered. Her name was Nettles. In George R.R. Martin's book, Fire and Blood, she is one of the most important characters in the entire war. A poor, common-born girl with no proven Targaryen blood who tames a wild dragon through nothing but patience and trust. The show replaced her with a princess, and Martin has been writing about the dangers of changes like this on his blog for over a year, warning about what he calls the butterfly effect, where one small change ripples into a completely different story. Today we are breaking down every major change between the books and episodes 1 and 2 of Season 3. What was altered, why it matters, and whether the show made the right call. Because some of these changes are bigger than you think. This is the change Martin reportedly dislikes most. In the books, the wild dragon sheep-stealer is claimed by Nettles, a poor common-born girl of uncertain parentage, possibly without any Targaryen blood at all. She doesn't ride up and command the dragon. She wins it slowly, patiently, over weeks of feeding it sheep until it learns to trust her. The entire point of her story is a genuine mystery the book leaves unresolved. Are dragons bound to Targaryen blood by nature, or is that just a story the dynasty tells itself to justify their power? The show deletes Nettles entirely and gives Sheep-Stealer to Rhaena Targaryen instead, a legitimate princess. According to George R.R. Martin's own blog post titled Here There Be Dragons, dragons in his books are territorial creatures tied to specific lairs. They don't wander freely across the realm the way the show now depicts. By making a Targaryen claim Sheep-Stealer instead of a random commoner, the show doesn't just cut a character. It quietly answers a question the book deliberately left open. And the answer it gives is a much more conventional one. Dragons belong to Targaryens. Full stop. The mystery is gone. In Fire and Blood, the Battle of the Gullet is a full dragon seed showcase. 5 riders converge on the Triarchy fleet simultaneously. Hugh Hammer on Vermithor, Ulf White on Silverwing, Adam of Hull on Sea Smoke, Nettles on Sheep-Stealer, and Jacaerys on Vermax. The show benches 3 of them entirely. Hugh, Ulf, and Adam spend the entire battle camping uselessly near the God's Eye, caught up in an unrelated subplot, and arrive too late to matter. The battle instead reorganizes around Rhaena, Baela, Jace, Corlys, and Sharako Lohar, and Baela's presence is itself an invention, since in the books her dragon Moondancer is still too young and too small to fight at this stage. The biggest structural omission is the disappearance of Rhaenyra's 2 youngest sons entirely. In the books, the Gullet actually begins with the Triarchy capturing Aegon and Viserys, Rhaenyra and Daemon's small children, at sea. Viserys is taken prisoner. Aegon escapes on his tiny dragon Stormcloud, who dies getting him home. None of that exists in the show at all. This is the deepest change in the entire season, and it is not a minor deviation. In Fire and Blood, Alicent and Rhaenyra despise each other completely. There is no secret alliance, no forged letters, no quiet meetings, no bargain to spare Helena's life. The book is explicit. Each woman wants the other's family destroyed. Full stop. The show has invented an entirely different relationship. Secret meetings between the 2 women, a bargain where Alicent agrees to open King's Landing's gates in exchange for her son's life, and an entire forged letter subplot where Alicent deceives her own cousin Lord Ormond Hightower to stall the Hightower army, none of which exists on the page. In the books, when Rhaenyra takes King's Landing, the Blacks do not need Alicent's help at all. Aemond and Criston Cole have already left the city undefended, and Fire and Blood actually suggests Alicent calls for help against Rhaenyra rather than aiding her. The show has built an entirely new emotional engine for the entire war. 2 women bound by old friendship now choosing different sides, that simply does not exist in Martin's text. It is the single largest deviation in the entire adaptation. Here's a detail most viewers won't realize. Almost everything involving King Aegon II in the early part of Season 3 is invention, not because the show changed his book story, but because the book simply doesn't have one at this point. In Fire and Blood, Aegon disappears from view entirely after leaving King's Landing and doesn't resurface in the text until much later. The show has to invent material to keep him present on screen, because a TV series cannot simply remove its nominal king from the story for several episodes. This is one of the more understandable changes. Not every gap in the book can stay a gap on screen. But it does mean that everything Aegon does and says in this stretch of episodes is the show's creation, not Martin's. Before we get to Episode 2's deaths, I want to flag something the showrunners chose to add that exists nowhere in the book and that critics have specifically called unnecessary: a scene where Lord Jasper Wilde attempts to assault Dowager Queen Alicent Hightower. It has almost no narrative consequence. He simply ends up imprisoned and later executed. Several entertainment outlets covering the episode specifically criticized this addition as gratuitous, arguing there were other ways to get Jasper to the same narrative endpoint without that scene. This is a useful moment to pause on, because not every change in an adaptation is about streamlining a complex book for television. Some changes are creative choices the writers simply made, and not every choice lands well. What do you think, what? Was that scene necessary to the story, or was it exactly the kind of unnecessary addition critics are calling it? Tell me in the comments, because this is one of the more divisive choices of the season so far. In the show, Aemond arrives at Harrenhal and is met by Simon Strong, the castle's loyal and level-headed castellan. Aemond challenges him to a duel. Simon, defenseless and too old to fight, tries to reason with him instead, surrendering the castle without resistance. Aemond stabs him anyway. Simon's two sons attempt to avenge their father and are killed as well, though one manages to wound Aemond badly enough that the final shot of the episode shows him crawling, begging the witch Alice Rivers to save him. In the books, this entire sequence doesn't happen to Aemond at all. Sir Criston Cole captures Harrenhal a full day before Aemond even arrives. By the time Aemond gets there, the castle has already fallen, and the two of them simply celebrate the victory together. Aemond learns about the fall of King's Landing while already safely inside Harrenhal, and Fire and Blood describes his reaction in one telling phrase. His fury, the book says, was fearsome to behold. The show has taken a scene of celebration and turned it into a brutal massacre that nearly costs Aemond his life. That is a significant tonal shift for one of the show's central characters heading into the rest of the season. This is the death that closes Episode 2, and it is actually one of the more book-accurate moments of the season, with a few key differences. In the show, Larys Strong has secretly imprisoned Otto Hightower in the Red Keep's black cells after Aegon dismissed him back in Season 2, and reveals this to Daemon as a kind of gift. Daemon brings Otto before Rhaenyra and hands her Dark Sister, suggesting she execute him herself before sitting the throne. Otto, in his final moment, urges Daemon to do it instead, since he has more battlefield experience. Rhaenyra strikes twice, failing to fully sever his head on the first blow. In Fire and Blood, the broad outcome is similar. Otto is the first of the so-called traitors executed when Rhaenyra takes the city. But the smaller details differ. In the books, it was Otto, not Tyland Lannister, who originally forged the alliance with the Triarchy. And critically, the book is clear that Alicent herself is spared by Rhaenyra, who tells her she does this for the sake of our father who loved you once, while Fire and Blood notes dryly that Otto, her actual father, was less fortunate. The emotional core of the scene, a Hightower architect of the war meeting the consequence of his choices, survives the adaptation. The specific staging around it is new. So, across these two episodes, does the show's approach actually work? Here's the honest answer. Some changes streamline a genuinely complicated, unreliable narrator-driven historical text into something a television audience can follow. And that is a legitimate, necessary part of adaptation. Other changes, particularly the deletion of Nettles and the complete reconstruction of Alicent's character, fundamentally alter the thematic questions the book was asking. Nettles' story interrogated whether Targaryen power was really about blood or really about belief. The show has quietly closed that question rather than exploring it. Alicent's reinvention gives the show a stronger emotional spine for casual viewers, but it erases the colder, more uncomfortable original premise. Two women who once loved each other coming to genuinely hate each other under the pressure of power. Both are valid creative choices, neither is free. Every adaptation makes trades. The question worth asking isn't whether the show is being faithful, it's whether the trades it's making are worth what they cost. I think some are. I think some genuinely aren't. That's everything that changed in episodes 1 and 2 of Season 3. Nettles erased, the gullet rebuilt around different riders, Alicent reimagined as a completely different character. Aegon's invented arc filling a gap the book leaves empty. Simon Strong's death turned violent instead of peaceful, and Otto's execution staged differently but landing in the same place. Episode 3 airs next Sunday, and based on what we know is coming in the books, the next stretch of the story is where the adaptation gap may widen even further. We'll break it down the moment it airs. Same format, same sourcing, same commitment to telling you exactly what changed and why it matters. Subscribe to Powerlines so you don't miss it, and tell me in the comments which change bothers you the most, Nettles being erased or Alicent becoming a completely different person. I want to know where you land.